I don't usually mix topics. It kind of makes it hard to title a video. But we're 70 days away from September 23rd, which is a date that I'm looking at very closely in light of prophetic events. I'd like to talk about several things, but I want to start out with somewhat of an introduction here and just let you know, if you're a new visitor to this channel, just where I stand on the matter of God's supreme sovereignty. God is supremely sovereign. The God that I worship is supremely sovereign. I do not worship a God of chance. So I just want to say that right from the outset. God is supremely sovereign over everything. Everything in all of God's created order. His will be done in heaven and on earth. Of course, the argument has always been, the debate has always been one that surrounding the question of God's sovereignty versus man's responsibility. Our so-called free will. You may hear some things in this video that you've never heard before, or you may hear some things that you have heard before and that you may agree or disagree with. And I do not expect anyone to agree with me on anything, ever. I'm not out to increase my number of views or gain a bigger following or anything like that. God is supremely sovereign, folks, whether we're talking about 3 interstellar objects that are traveling through our solar system, newly discovered interstellar objects. And you have to ask, well, why haven't we discovered these before? And of course, the argument is always, well, we didn't have the technology. I will briefly mention these 3 objects. 2017, the discovery of Oumuamua, an interstellar object from outside our solar system. And then in 2019, Borisov, another interstellar object. Now, these are all classified as comets, but the original thought was that they were from our own solar system until we discovered they were interstellar objects. And so we gave them the new classification I. Instead of A for asteroid or C for comet, we gave them I, the designation I, for interstellar object. I'm telling you that I believe that God is sovereign, whether we're talking about 3 interstellar objects or 3 pebbles rolling along the stream bed, you know, the bottom of a stream, tumbling, gyrating along with the current along the stream bed, or 3 decisions that you make in your life. Whether we're talking about interstellar objects, pebbles in a stream, or decisions that you make, God is supremely sovereign. Supremely sovereign. And so I want to talk about, very quickly, this latest 3rd discovery of an interstellar object. and then I want to talk about God's sovereignty. Now, the subject of this, what you're going to hear about God's sovereignty, it's only been on my mind for the past 38 years. If you followed this channel for any length of time, you've probably heard me talk about it, or maybe you've even seen a video that I've done in the past on God's sovereignty in the way that I'm going to talk about it today, 70 days before September 23rd, Feast of Trumpets. So let's talk about the comet that's of question here, this third interstellar object. They're all classified. All three of these interstellar objects are known to be comets. The I designation has more to do with not as much what it is as where it's come from. Okay. So the comet interstellar object in question here is 3I Atlas. It was officially designated as C/2025 N1 Atlas. It's a newly discovered interstellar object. It's only the third such object confirmed to have entered our solar system from outside our solar system. It was first spotted on July the 1st of this year, not too long ago, by the Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System. That's the ATLAS acronym, a telescope in Chile. So a July 1 discovery of the third interstellar comet approaching Earth from Sagittarius. Its closest approach being October 30, which puts that in the time frame of our timeline, this fall timeline. And Sagittarius represents the Redeemer's triumph in coming forth, conquering, and to conquer. The constellation's traditional depiction as an archer, Sagittarius means the archer in Latin, is central to what many of you some of you may be familiar with, Bollinger's Witness in the Stars, Gospel in the Stars. His interpretation. The arrow of the archer symbolizes divine judgment and the swiftness of the coming Redeemer's victory over his enemies. Sagittarius, the two natures, the man and the horse, the image of the centaur, half man, half horse, associated with Sagittarius, is interpreted by Bollinger as representing the two natures of the Messiah, fully human, fully God. Not half and half, but fully both, human and divine. This two-natured conqueror goes forth in power, unlike some earlier signs that focus on the suffering or the sacrifice of our Redeemer. Sagittarius, what it emphasizes is his glorious return and his ultimate triumph. It's about his righteous reign and the judgment that accompanies his victory. Now, It's bigger than the previous two, Oumuamua and Borisov, the 2017, 2019. We're looking at about roughly 20 kilometers in diameter. That's approximately 12 miles. I think it's 12.4 miles. Its highly hyperbolic orbit confirms that it originated from outside our solar system, making it quite unique. Something very interesting for astronomers to study. So it follows Oumuamua and Borisov as the third confirmed interstellar visitor. Third. Okay. Why haven't we seen these before? Well, the argument, as I said, the argument is, well, we didn't have the technology. But listen to me. God is supremely sovereign. We have to factor that into this equation. Now, it'll make its closest approach to the sun around October 30 of this year, at a distance just inside the orbit of Mars. And it's expected to remain visible to ground-based telescopes through September of 2025 before passing close to the sun, or too close for observation. It'll reappear on the other side of the sun by early December of 2025, giving astronomers a further chance to study it. It is moving at a very high speed, estimated to be around 140,000 miles per hour relative to the sun. So this rare sign in the heavens is coming into view. It's big, it's fast, and it's coming from Sagittarius during the fall feast season of this year. NASA's confirmed that 3I Atlas poses no threat to Earth, and it will remain a safe distance away. With its closest approach to our planet being about 1.6 astronomical units, that's approximately 240 million kilometers or 150 million miles. It is enormous. This thing's huge. It's bigger than the other two, the previous two. Its physical properties are still being investigated, but early estimates suggest that it could be around 20 kilometers in diameter. And no threat to Earth, according to NASA. Its brightness might be exaggerated by its dust cloud. As far as visibility goes, which is important to me in relationship to this prophetic timeline, it's expected to remain visible to ground-based telescopes through September before passing too close to the sun for observation. And then it reappears on the other side of the sun by early December of this year. Early December. It's moving fast. It's moving at a very, very high velocity. 61 kilometers a second. That's 140,000 miles per hour. So this is what we have to look This is I believe it's a sign in the heavens. I pointed out on numerous occasions how that pointed to the verse in Genesis where that God made these signs in the heavens to mark seasons and days and years. Now, I haven't said that. I want to talk about the main content of this video. I'm going to call this God's Mighty Stream. God's Mighty Stream. Bad news is I've done this before. Good news is, well, maybe you didn't see it. So it'll be new to you. And as I said, this talk has only been on my mind for the past 38 years. Dearly beloved, there are no coincidences in a divinely orchestrated universe. Not a single one. Not a single one. We tend to build our lives around coincidences which don't exist. It should not come across, that shouldn't sound to you like some really, well, Steve, that's a really profound theological perspective. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's a simple fact. The idea that there are no coincidences in a divinely orchestrated universe suggests a worldview where everything that happens, no matter how seemingly random, is part of a larger intentional plan by the God that we worship, our Lord Jesus Christ. So from this standpoint, everything has a purpose. Every event, every encounter, whether it's 3 interstellar objects or 3 pebbles moving along the bottom of a creek bed, or 3 decisions that you make, everything is seen as having a reason or being guided towards a specific outcome, even if that purpose isn't immediately clear to you, to your understanding. All I'm telling you is that this implies a belief in divine providence, where God or, Jesus Christ, more specifically, the second person of the Trinity, actively governs and oversees the universe, ensuring that all events unfold according to his predetermined design. Why should that shock anybody? Why should it shock you? What others might dismiss as chance or random occurrence, there are many, including myself, who view these things as meaningful patterns or signs of divine intervention. Now, why is this important? Well, because coincidence means uncertainty about everything. Divine providence and God's sovereign will, God's sovereignty, his supreme sovereignty brings comfort. It allows for comfort and trust. And for many, this perspective can bring immense comfort. It does to me. And it fosters a sense of trust that even in difficult times, there is an ultimate good or a higher purpose being served. It doesn't matter what I go through in my life. It doesn't matter what happens to me. It doesn't matter what God takes me through in my life. From this perspective, there's comfort. It is a perspective deeply rooted in fact, it's deeply rooted in many religions and spiritual traditions, where that the universe is not a product of random chance, but rather a creation infused with meaning and guided by divine providence. It's not It's not a random view of the universe where events are seen as, as the result of impersonal physical laws and chance interactions. Like this just accidentally happened, I talked about this years ago. I want you to imagine, if you can, folks, please. Imagine God's sovereign will being a stream flowing in one direction, where the decisions that we make, no matter how minute, are debris along its banks caught up in the current. Nothing that you do, no decision you make is going to change or alter the direction of that current. I think it's a rich way to conceptualize the interplay between divine will and human agency. This current, the current of God's mighty stream, it's unstoppable. This mighty stream, this God's mighty stream, is God's sovereign will. That's the illustration I'm offering you here. Irresistible force. The stream flows in one direction, implying God's ultimate plan is unchangeable and will inevitably reach its destination. It's a powerful force that can't be diverted or stopped by whatever you think, say, or do. Can't be diverted or stopped by human actions. Give me a few minutes. I'm going to bring some scripture into this. This current represents God's ultimate control and predetermined purpose for the universe and everything within it. It's the underlying reality that guides all things, especially the decisions that we make. People don't like those words, predestination, foreknowledge, foreordination, and election, and all that. They don't like that. Why don't they? Well, because it goes against our basic human nature to think in those terms. What I'm talking about speaks to the idea of predestination or divine foreknowledge, where God knows and has ordained the ultimate course of events. He has to. He can't leave it to chance. He can't leave that to us. What a mess it would be if he did. We'd really be in trouble. The debris, think of those as human decisions, your so-called free will. Think of it like that. The debris is along the banks of this stream or caught up in the current. And that suggests that while human decisions might seem independent, they are always operating within the larger context and influence of God's will. Our choices are not outside the scope of His influence. Folks, debris doesn't typically steer itself. It's moved by the current. Now, while we may make choices, the ultimate outcome or the direction our choices take, that our choices take us, is still largely determined by the divine current. Our free will, I put that in quotes, might be more about how we react or which piece of debris we are rather than our ability to fundamentally alter the stream's course. God doesn't fit his plan into ours. It works the other way around. We are being carried along, dearly beloved. Our decisions might be the specific ways in which God's will manifests or how we participate in it, even if we don't fully understand the larger picture. We are carried along by his divine plan. And there's purpose within the whole. Even debris can serve a purpose within a stream. It might shape eddies, provide shelter or for fish, or eventually contribute to a new landscape somewhere downstream. And in a similar way, our decisions, every single last one, none accepted, every one of the decisions you make, no matter how small, no matter how insignificant you think they are, contribute, folks, it contributes to the unfolding of God's larger plan. I think this whole illustration, this metaphor, elegantly grapples with one of the most challenging theological concepts, the paradox of divine sovereignty, God's ultimate control, and human so-called free will. I've had people say, Steve, there's a natural... It goes way back with me, back to in my Bible college days. Steve, there's a natural tension that exists between God's sovereignty and man's response. No, there isn't. No tension, folks, exists between God's sovereignty and your so-called free will. You made that up. It's the idea that free will and divine sovereignty are not mutually exclusive, but can coexist. Our choices are genuine, but they are also part of God's predetermined plan. And I think it's a powerful way to express a deep trust in divine purpose, even when individual choices feel messy or uncertain. Because what it suggests is that despite our perceived freedom, there's an underlying, overarching order to existence guided by God. And that, folks, that brings tremendous comfort. It will bring you tremendous comfort. You don't have to live in fear. You don't have to live with uncertainty. Picture that stream and its debris driven by the stream's strong, unchanging current. Think of those three interstellar objects as debris. Doesn't matter whether we're talking about interstellar objects, pebbles in the bottom of a creek, debris in a stream, or the decisions you make. Just imagine a vast, ancient river, immense in scale, with a current so powerful it's almost a force of nature unto itself. This is not some meandering brook here. It's a cosmic river, and it's wide and it's deep, flowing with an unstoppable, unyielding momentum. Its color is not merely water, it's infused with purpose. It's a deep, resonant hue that hints at eternity. Its flow is absolutely constant, perfectly smooth, utterly relentless, never wavering in speed or direction. This is the sovereign will of our God. And it's true, whether you believe it or not. And along its banks, and indeed within its current, are countless pieces of debris. Some are tiny pebbles, individual human choices, fleeting thoughts, micro decisions that you made in a moment. All immediately caught by the current, caught up by the current, nudged, spun, carried along, their brief existence entirely subject to the river's pull. And others are larger, branches, logs. You wouldn't believe the stuff I've seen floating down some of the streams around here. Bigger stuff, representing more significant life choices, major projects, societal movements, or even historical events, wars, you name it. They might briefly snag on a rocky outcrop, a moment of perceived resistance or struggle, but the current's immense power eventually wrenches them free or carves new paths around them. Compelling them forward in the river's predetermined direction. They tumble and they roll. Their specific trajectory determined by what? All kinds of things. By their shape, their weight in relation to the current's force. And occasionally, what do you see? Well, you see a collection of debris, perhaps a tangled raft of branches and leaves, twigs, you name it, whatever. A community, a nation, a collective human endeavor. And for a time, they might seem to move as one, marking their own path. But look closer, and you see that their collective movement is still entirely dictated by the underlying, unchanging push of the river. The raft itself, or the tangled up mess itself, is just a larger piece of debris being carried. And you got all the smaller stuff. You might have smaller eddies might form around the debris. Well, these are temporary and localized. They are caused by the current and exist within it. They don't represent a true deviation or an independent path for the debris. The main current remains utterly unperturbed. And it has a destination. The river's destination is clear. The river's destination is inevitable. Even if the debris has no conscious awareness of it. Every piece, regardless of its size or its weight or its momentary gyrations, is ultimately being drawn towards that singular, predetermined end. Dearly beloved, this is not fatalism in the sense that most people, are familiar with that term. We're talking about God's sovereign will. Now, from the perspective of a piece of debris, it might feel like it's making progress, navigating, or even resisting. But from the vantage point of the river itself, or a perspective above it, its movement is entirely a function of the current. The current. Its choices are simply its unique way of responding to and being shaped by the irresistible force that's carrying it. What comfort there is in God's sovereign will, knowing that God is supremely sovereign. The comfort of God's sovereignty. I wouldn't trade anything for that, folks. And the sound of the stream, it's not a violent roar, but a deep resonant hum. The sound of vast, immeasurable power moving with infinite patience and certainty. It's the sound of destiny unfolding. I think the image conveys a profound sense of absolute divine sovereignty where everything, including our seemingly free choices, is ultimately subsumed within and driven by God's overarching, unwavering will. Our decisions are the specific, tangible manifestations of that will as it interacts with the created world rather than deviations from it. So, does Scripture support what I'm saying? Absolutely does. Philippians chapter 2, verses 12 through 13, a verse that most of you ought to be familiar with. It fits exceptionally well as a supporting verse for the concept of this God's mighty stream. Work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. Work out your salvation with fear and trembling. Dearly beloved, this directly speaks to the debris, our human decisions, our actions, and the exercise of what we perceive as our free will. We are actively working out something, implying effort, choices, and responsibility. The debris isn't entirely passive, it's engaged in a process. Fear and trembling. Fear and trembling. The word fear, phobos, there in the Greek, that's reverence. It suggests a reverence for the power and the presence of God in this work. It acknowledges that it's not solely our own doing. For it is God which worketh in you both to will and to do of his good pleasure. This is the mighty stream in action. It explicitly states that God is the one working in you. You're not working in God. You're not working for God. God is working in you. Both to will. This refers to our desires, our intentions, and inner motivations, even our volition. The very act of wanting or deciding is influenced and empowered by God. The current doesn't just push the debris. It also shapes its internal composition. You know how a pebble gets polished, as it goes along? God inclines us to move in a certain direction. You didn't come up with that on your own. To will and to do, says the text. This refers to our actions and external manifestations of our will. God is also working in us to enable us to perform those actions. No wonder we're to give him all the glory and all the credit. Unto him be all the glory and honor forever and ever and ever. The current not only gives the debris its direction, but also provides the force for its movement. And he's working in us according to his good pleasure, of his good pleasure. This reinforces that the ultimate purpose and the direction of this divine work is aligned with God's perfect plan and will. Perfect plan and will. The unchanging direction of the stream. Our willing, our doing, empowered by what? The flesh? No. Empowered by God. Ultimately, serving his greater good pleasure. I think it connects well with the whole metaphor. The verse beautifully illustrates the tension, so-called, and harmony between divine sovereignty and human agency, which is at the heart of God's mighty stream. We, the debris, are called to work out our existence within the stream, making choices and exerting effort. However, the power, folks, the power that moves us, the desire to move in a certain direction, one direction or another, and the ability to act are all ultimately given and directed by God's mighty stream. And as you know, streams, rivers, that sort of thing, eventually it empties out into the sea. And I'm going to call that ocean eternity. Eternity. So, we have reached a point in which we can't go any further. Look, I love you all, I truly do. Rest in him. Until next time, this is Steve. Thanks for watching.